Hey guys, welcome back to RMA Garage. I'm Mark and I'm glad you joined us today. In today's video, we're going to be taking off the rear shock absorber and disassembling the relay arm on the bottom and basically cleaning it, making sure that it's lubricated and ready to go for this summer. All right, so let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take off the nut holding on the top of the shock, but we're not going to take the bolt out yet until after we remove all the linkage down below. Okay, so the torque spec on this shouldn't be too much, but we haven't taken this off in about 2 years. Okay. This is a number 14. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is take off the relay arm. And this is a number 17 socket. This bolt holds the bottom of the shock. Okay, and then we have to switch out to a number 19 for the rest of it. Okay, so now these should all slide out, but there is one more here. It's on the other side, and we'll get that here in a little bit, but we don't need to take this off to get the rest of this out, okay? So the trick is gonna be, basically you gotta lift up on the arm a little bit to take the pressure off of these bolts, and they will slide out the back side here. And that one is for the linkage, or for the all right. So the one thing I do to make this a little easier is I put a bungee cord on the frame and on the swing arm so that when you're working, the swing arm's not bottomed out and you can kind of get underneath and do what you need to do underneath here without it being completely bottomed out. All right, so now we are ready to take the shock out. Now, again, this is you're gonna need to wiggle this just a little bit. And so this here is the fuel line, and this is part of the wiring harness. What you have to do is you gotta lift that up a little bit, and you gotta get this bolt started, because it will not be able to get it out with those in the way. So once you get this bolt out though, the shock is ready to go, so you don't want to lose it. Okay. And there we go. And that bolt can just stay there for the second. So wow, yeah, that's a bit dirty on the bottom. Stone sitting in the bottom cup. So yeah, that one definitely needed to be cleaned. So we'll take care of that. So the last bolt we have to get out is the one holding on this link here. And it is in the worst possible place. You really can't get to it. You can't get a socket in here. And basically it's always been a struggle. So I think at this point, I just need to kind of get the best leverage I can without hurting myself. Oh, there it is. At least I got an eighth of a turn on it anyway. Let's try it again, huh? There we go. It's going to be a little slow going in the beginning, but this is the hardest. I think this is the hardest part, but once you get it moving, there we go. Whew. All right, the nut is off. There is a washer here. And that could probably just fall off when you take the bolt off, but we'll take it off. All right, so now we should be good to go to get this going. There we go. And there you have it. Whew, that's a little dirty. So we're at the bench and we've got all the parts laid out here. And of course, my favorite thing to do in the world is to clean. So basically what I'm gonna do is go through all of these bolts, the link, and we're gonna talk about this a little bit, the lowering link. My son is a little shorter than the rest of us, but no worse for wear. And we found the motorcycle that I bought, my YZ250FX, came with a lowering link because the guy that I bought it from was only 5'6". And when I got it, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I looked at it and I thought this would be perfect for my son. So nothing too fantastic here. In fact, I'm just gonna try and get most of the dirt off. And the grease. So these all had grease on them, will have grease on them again. So we just basically want to get as much grime and grit off of these. And what I'm doing is I'm putting my fingernail into the side of the rag and I'm dragging out as much grease and dirt out of there as I possibly can. But you know what? I'm not going to go super crazy on this because this is the business end of the bike. And I just want to make sure that there's no damage. I mean, we're looking for damage. We're looking for anything that would be suspect to premature failure. So it doesn't have to be super clean unless you're selling the bike. If I was to sell this bike, I'd probably spend 3 more times longer on it just to get it perfect for the other guy. Because everybody likes a machine that is nice and well maintained, especially when they're buying. Now, as you can see, I always leave the nut on the bolt because everything starts looking the same after a while. And I just want to reduce the amount of mistake, the risk of mistake. It's the silly thing sometimes. So I'm basically just getting the bad stuff off. But I'll talk about this lowering link. So the lowering link is made by Devol. There's the name of it. And what it does is it lowers the seat about 1.25 inches. And it basically lowers it through the suspension. And it's kind of cool because it doesn't really change the way the bike handles. I guess if you're a purist or if you're super awesome on a dirt bike, you would notice the difference, but we're not that skilled, or at least have so much time on a dirt bike that would know the difference. But this is, it's really cool. I'm actually contemplating putting it on my bike, even though I don't need it. But where I ride, I don't jump, so I know there are some restrictions when you have a lowering link for jumping and for putting stress on these things. We trail ride, we don't motocross, so we're not going to kind of beat these things up, but you'd have to kind of look into them a little bit to see. I'm sure they have lowering links for motocross bikes, but you know, we're trail riders, so it's fun. But I found on my bike, you know, when you're riding through the trails and you can touch and you can dab and you can do all the things that probably you shouldn't do because when you're trail riding, keeping your feet on the pegs is probably the best thing because that means you're balanced. And But when you got to put your foot down or you get into a predicament and you can't touch, it's not fun. It's certainly not fun at all. So having an extra inch lower on the bike would definitely make it seem easier, I guess. You know, more confident on the bike, so you don't feel intimidated by it. I actually did see the last time I rode, it was the turkey run at Crow Canyon. There was a real tall guy, and he was on a bike, and he could easily put his feet down, and the amount of agility that he had on that bike was phenomenal, because he could touch. I mean, he could set his foot down and do a quick donut and lean the bike over, but when a bike is really too tall for you, it definitely makes for, it's difficult. It's difficult to maneuver when the bike is too tall for you. So I may experiment with this. So here's the link. There is some grease. This one here we're probably going to spend a little bit more time on. We're going to basically get as much grease and dirt out from here. And this is kind of like a cake dirt, so we're going to have to get this wet. I don't really want to submerge this in water, but I tell you what, we're going to take these three we're going to take to the sink, and we'll do some time lapse. But as you can see, these bolts cleaned up really nice. There's really not a lot of wear on them. They're not bent. They're good to go. So I'm going to take these to the sink, and we're going to clean these up and basically take a plastic brush to them and get all the dirt and grime off of the shock. Kind of make sure that the cup down here is nice and clean and that everything is ready to go. So I got the rear shock clean, and I got the pivot arm clean, and the linkage clean. So we're ready to inspect, but I just remembered that I did a video a while back on doing all of that, and it was pretty good. So I am going to insert that now, and you guys can watch that, and I'll also leave a link in the description below on where that video can be seen for itself. And I do encourage you to check out some of our other older stuff. It's pretty good. So here we go. We are going to be working on what the owner's manual says is the relay arm and the connecting arm. And basically there are roller bearings in each of these areas, and there's some roller bearings in here where they attach. This is an exploded view of the rear shock. And if you notice, the lubricant is designated as M. And when we go back to the beginning of the book, designated M is Molybdenum. I can't say it. Molybdenum disulfide grease. Molybdenum disulfide grease. And that's what we're going to use to lubricate the parts. Okay, so basically, it's pretty simple actually. It just pops out. Looks pretty clean. Inside, you will see, I'm using the light from the Ratchet here, but see the roller bearings in there. That's what we're going to be inspecting. Alright, so basically these are the roller bearings. Very small. I think I counted them, there are 32 in each side. And these roller bearings are just loose laid in there. And they're basically held in by grease, and then the shaft basically just sits up against the shaft and they spin. So these don't look too bad. There's no marks, there's no divots of any sort. I don't know if you can pick that up in the camera, but that's all they are, tiny little things. And that one also is in pretty decent shape, if you guys can see that. If you can't, I apologize, but they look pretty good. So basically what I end up doing with these is I've taken them out in the past. You really don't have to. Basically all I'm gonna do is take some grease. Well, first, take a paper towel and clean around the edge, making sure that the dirt's out from the side, where the seal is. So then what we're going to do is take some grease, and I'll just put an extra coating of grease in here. Doesn't take much because there's already grease in there. We really don't have to add a whole lot, basically just to recoat them. This grease is very sticky, it gets pretty much on everything. It clings very well. So what we're going to do is lubricate the shaft here. Basically, stick it back in. If they were worn out, you'd have to replace the bearings and probably this cylinder that the bolt runs through. But ours is still pretty new. But basically we're just checking to see for wear or damage. Alright, so basically the same thing with this. Taking the cups out. And that looks pretty good. I don't see any there's no marks of any sort. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's pretty clean. There's no grooves in it at all. Add a little bit of grease. And put these things back in. Put the cups back in. Okay, same thing. Yep, and that looks good too. So this looks pretty good. Again, it didn't expect it, but we want to check them just to make sure. That slides back into place. All right, well that's pretty much it. Just inspecting, lubricating, making sure everything's good. Then those will be ready to reinstall back onto the bike. Okay, hey guys, I wanted to show you the lowering link that is on my son's YZ250FX 2015 model. This is a Devol lowering link, and this is part number 5502. Okay, and I want to show you that this is the lowering link that you can get. The lowering link is roughly $200, and it lowers the seat 1.25 inches, and that is the lowering link that we have. I want to show you the difference between stock and the Devol lowering link. So as you can see, there really isn't that much of a difference. I would have to say probably 1/4 inch maybe, but that 1/4 inch translates into 1.25 inches lower on the seat, which is very helpful for my son to help touching the ground. Now this one is forged. You can see that it's been forged in the factory. This one has been milled. You can see the milling lines, if you guys can pick that up. Then you can even see, if I can get a glare, you can even see some of the milling marks in this side as well. And then this is there's the part number 55, if you can pick that up, 5502. So right here I'm cleaning, I'm just getting rid of all of the dirt and debris in those places that are really hard to get to when the shock is in place and the linkage is there. So before we install everything, we're going to put lithium soap-based grease, which is the Yamalube race grease, on all of the linkage bolts. I like to do this first just because when you start putting everything together, it's going to be a lot of holding and hurry up, get this bolt in, get that bolt in, and there's not going to be time to do one at a time. So I will lubricate all of these first, and then we'll install it on the bike. All right, so we're ready to install the rear shock. I like to do that first because everything else depends on the bottom. But we have to get these, the fuel line and the wiring harness out of the way. And what I like to do first is I'd like to feed this bolt in here first and kind of get it ready to go. So all I got to do is push it in once I set the shock down, because it really is kind of a little cumbersome getting this all in here and getting that bolt in. So as I lower this down and we get that into place, then hopefully I can get this bolt. There we go. So that was the best. That's the best way to do it right there, is to have that thing ready, already in, and then you can see there's a flat spot. You know where that goes. Right up against the frame, and now you're good to go. Wipe off excess grease that gets pushed through. And then we're going to only finger tight all these bolts, and we'll tighten them all up at the end with a torque wrench. All right, so I'm going to install the link first. Okay, so that'll go in first. All right, so we got the link here. We'll get that installed, okay? And I'm gonna leave the nut on for now. Okay, now we're ready for the other side here. I wanna lift it up. There, so that is all ready to go, and the swing arm is still being suspended, so it's not in our way. To get the other bolt ready to go, and I'm going to take the bungee off and kind of get it started like so. So we'll wipe the grease off of the ends of the bolts, and we can fish these on. And this one down here doesn't get a washer. And the only one we have left to put on is the really difficult one, which is this bolt back here. All right, so that is for the most part bottomed out. Next bolt we're going to torque is this one up here, and this is a number 19, and it gets 51 foot-pounds. And we're going to use an extension just to get out from the frame or from the swing arm. Okay, and This torque specification here, that's the bottom of the shock, is 38 foot-pounds. Okay. All right, so we got the bottom one here. It's a number 19 socket, and this is at 58 pounds. Okay, so the last one we need to get here is this one in the back. And this has just been, it's always so hard to get out. Okay, folks, so what I normally do on this is torqued at 58. And I basically just get it to a point where we just did the one here on 58, and I kind of have just a feel for it. And we just tighten it down to what we feel 58 is, and I've never had a problem. Maybe after a ride or two, I will check this. All right, so the last bolt we need to torque here is on top, and this is a number 14 socket, and I've done this before, and I think I have enough room. It's tight, but I definitely can get it. And this is 41 foot-pounds. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions or concerns or things I've done wrong, please leave comments below and I will get back to you. We do appreciate you guys watching and supporting the channel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and the bell so you won't miss more videos on my YZ250FX. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.